let's go. Let's talk patch notes. I think that's probably something good to look at. So if I remember correctly, these patch notes are says right here. These are after Worlds patch notes. So this will not be the patch you'll see at Worlds in the next month or so, which means that it'll be a little bit harder to see what the general feedback is on these patch notes because a lot of the pros will be playing on the games before, so to speak. After this, I'll probably look at the new champion that's someone just misspelled Riven, and we'll see. I don't know how long these patch notes are, but let's just jump into it. 6.19 patch notes. What they say, it returns to normal programming. Few projects deemed too risky for patches hyper-focused on worlds, and our balanced focus return to standard calibration. So initially, my first thoughts are it's really strange to have this patch right now because even though Worlds is in motion, so when players play in solo queue, like they're gonna be playing on the patch ahead of Worlds, which I think happens every year. I always think that's kind of strange for them because it must be really weird for them to adapt to bigger patches that aren't focused on Worlds, and some of their practice time is going to be kind of inefficient. But I guess it's okay. It's whatever. No big deal. Let's keep going. For everyone not at Worlds. So I heard about this earlier. Kog'Maw, they reverted everything about Kog'Maw. And honestly, the only thing I know about Kog'Maw is that Kog'Maw requires very high and annoyingly high amount of mechanical skill and just like rapid rock attack moving all the way down. And it's a champion that scripters play a lot. So I'm okay with Kog'Maw being nerfed because it felt just weaker overall, except for in very, very specific situations where he made balance a nightmare. Like every on-hit item possible could get exploited by Kog'Maw if he was strong. And so I thought that they even say that the original idea for this champion just didn't work out. This is the first revert they've ever done on a nerf. I actually think it's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm glad they were able to revert it because the initial rework wasn't very successful, and hopefully in the future they're able to solve Kog'Maw's problems or just keep him the same as is. He moved away from the niche he previously filled. Yep, that's kind of how it felt. So what did they end up doing? They just gave him back his Q, back his W, and his E and his ulti are the same as on live. Okay, makes sense. I don't know if you'll see much play because it's been a long time since I even remember this specific Kog'Maw. But if I remember, the old Kog'Maw actually saw a decent amount of play maxing W because you were able to get a lot of extra range, 210 extra range. You can't right now, but his autos actually hurt before you get items, and so maybe he becomes a popular pick again, but I'm not experienced enough on Kog'Maw to be able to really make some kind of analysis on this. I don't know. All I remember is AP Kog'Maw mid used to be really annoying, and maybe it allows AP Kog'Maw to be played again in the mid lane, but I suspect that's probably not true because they nerfed his ulti way too hard in the last change. Anyways, moving on. So Anivia recently, a lot of people think Anivia is too good, and I think that's really strange. They took 50 base damage off of Anivia E, which is 25 base damage off of Anivia E, which is 50 base damage when they're chilled. That's a huge amount of base damage to remove on a core champion, a damage champion. I don't really know what to think about Anivia, so to speak. I don't think she's very good. Like, no one really plays Anivia anymore. On top of the fact that they're nerfing her again, it feels like this wasn't necessary on the champion because I don't really know what matchup she gets played into anymore. Sure, I'm sure her win rate might still be high, mainly because it's really hard to do too poorly on her because she has a revive passive, and a lot of her build path makes her naturally tanky, but I don't think she was an oppressive champion. And I don't like seeing like these large nerfs on champions that are just like maybe a little bit too good. And I don't even consider Anivia to be too good. At best, I think she's above average and in no way is oppressing any of the common mid lane picks at the moment. Aurelion Sol, I think Sol is really strong right now. What did they end up doing? The passive W damage up and the W damage down and W mana cost adjusted. So they made it cost more at earlier ranks and less at late. And E no longer requires build up. Okay, so the E buff is nice because you just immediately have the E. I think that's a really nice change because it was really annoying to get poked out on Aurelion Sol. Suddenly you lose 100 stacks. It seems like that's not the case anymore, which seems really good, but they ended up nerfing the W so much early. I think they were really worried about, in the mana cost, they're really worried about the early roam potential of Sol. Maybe thinking that early Sol roam potential was too high. I tend to maybe agree with that statement. They did nerf Talia, and Sol was next on the list of champions I can literally roam at level 2. And so, however, I feel like Sol has a very good trade-off because Sol's a champion where after 2 or 3 items, the champion falls off very, very hard. Like, falls off a cliff kind of hard. And so if he's not able to snowball the game early, then he's not a very, very good pick when you're going into mid and late game, unless your team comp it really enables you to perform well. And so I don't mind having a champion with strong strengths and strong weaknesses like Sol is. I think it may be... I don't know if these nerfs were necessary, but I do like the buff to the E. I guess we'll see what happens on live, but I can't imagine Sol players are too happy about this change. It's probably still possible to just shove in, but maybe not. Definitely not as much early anymore. Okay, let's keep going. Cassiopeia, I think, is probably the strongest mid laner in the game right now. She's the best blind pick. She's able to be flexible into any matchup. Even the new Ryze, new Cassio, new Ori are seeing a lot of play. Cassio is, I imagine, to be top dog in terms of very, very good blind pick champion. She's just super, super good. And because of that, I do think that she needs a little bit of nerfs to keep her down. Because all of her, I guess, counterparts got nerfed along that like kind of matched her in relative strength. So she's the only one I feel like that's a little bit higher than everyone else, or she's on the strength that everyone used to be before they got nerfed. Good example is Vladimir. She's just share the same tier, I guess, as Vlad, as well as pre-nerf Talia. And now that both of those are gone, Cassio kind of shines very, very brightly. Huh. I can't believe they said she still can't wear boots. So the cast range on W decreases, and the healing decreases on E. Oh, it means she heals less early in lane. So she's not a fully sustainable champion, and her healing scales based on her level. Okay, I think that's a reasonable nerf because giving her a lot of consistent DPS as well as a lot of healing is kind of maybe too much. And I did think that the W nerf is a good place to hit her because the W cast range is extremely long. 900 range is insane, especially for such a unique flash denial or mobility denial move. I think that these nerfs are very well tuned and keep her still strong. However, don't gut her in the process. I like these nerfs. I think this is a good way to nerf Cassiopeia into being just really good. Corki, I think this champion, Corki, recently, I tried a lot of Corki. Corki's strengths are that he spikes really hard with Triforce boots, and he spikes hard with Triforce boots Gunblade. That's the current build on Corki. However, he doesn't bring much utility, and it seems like he's missing a little bit of something before he's able to get to that point. I think he could use a very small buff, but you have to be careful because Corki does have package playmaking ability as well as a lot of really good poke. And so what did they decide to do for Corki? Increase his AD growth. Wow, that's a huge increase by almost 1 level. So he gains 18 AD over the course of the entire game, and it buffs Sheen. I think that's a nice buff to him, and it's small. He's not affecting any of his large numbers. However, it affects a lot of his kit because they all both his ulti and his Q scale off AD, and I guess his E to some extent. This is a really interesting buff. I like it. I think Corki could need something like this. It's cool. This Corki might see more play because of this, especially because you see a lot of these other mid laners are getting nerfs, and so because of that, you look toward new mid laners to see maybe champions that are pushing them out are less good, and maybe Corki can come back. Mundo, I just saw one of these in my last game. I very much enjoy being on the Mundo's team, but I don't think he's very good top lane. I remember where I used to be a Mundo one trick and played him into every matchup, but recently it seems like you can't beat the Bruiser matchups because they just have more consistent damage than you, and you only get against hard tanks, but no one really picks hard tanks anymore. Not to mention hard tanks out CC you, so your split pushing isn't very effective. I think that he would like a little bit of buffs, and what did they decide to target? They gave him buffs on his E. I think that's okay. At least it requires him to be in melee range. It's not buffs on his Q, his poke. I think that's really good. Probably the strongest part of his kit. So this is still going to be the same issue where he is played into melee tanks. However, tanks aren't really meta right now. And if they were, you can usually find better picks against them. So I don't think Mundo's going to see any relative increase in play even with these buffs. No big deal. Kled. Whew. I think Kled is really annoying because he gets full damage and vulnerability on dismount and remount, and he gains health back. So, and he can do it in 6 autos once he gets off his mount. So when you think of it that way, I think something has to be nerfed in that combination. Whether it's the invulnerability, the amount of times he can remount and dismount, I think that is probably the safest thing to nerf. That's what I look for, because I think there should be a cooldown how many times you can remount. So if you get dismounted and you remount, you can't remount like for a little bit. And usually most fights won't go to double remounts. But I still think it's crazy that it's possible. What is this? R range and duration decreased. Really? Oh, sorry. His remount doesn't have invulnerability. His dismount does. I apologize. So he does full damage to monsters and minions while dismounted. They just ended up nerfing his ulti. I guess maybe they thought his playmaking ability was too high. I don't think that that's the thing that makes him good, though. Like that is good, but the thing that makes him really annoying is his passive. On top of that, as the Kled player, I think it's nice to be able to control your W. But maybe that makes a W too strong. I don't know. I just think it's really annoying when it goes off automatically. And it's really the only passive ability in the game that does go off automatically. So it really, 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 really annoys me. It's like similar to Malzahar passive as an offensive cooldown. And I don't think that's great to play with. And it's easy for the opponents to play around. I would like that to be like you push to use the next 4 autos rather than what it is right now. Anyways, I don't think Kled is bad. I think his utility is very good. They nerfed a little bit of his utility and kept the rest of his kit the same. I think he'll still see play. He is a decently strong champion, not too good in lane, but he has overall great utility. Like he just has Silver ulti on the ulti. I think it's nice. Leona, fix the bug preventing Leona from flashing during his Zenith Blaze cast time. Well, that's not going to make her see more play, but it's nice for Leona players. Singed. Poison takes much faster, but damage over time is unchanged. This one's pretty simple. Smoother tick rate makes Poison Trail payoff more consistent, reflecting how Singed was able to outmaneuver his opponents, or how quickly they were able to escape. So it's 4 ticks per second. Does that mean Leandry's is better on this champion? I just think it means that the hitbox isn't as wonky as before, but I think that this doesn't really do too much. It means you can dodge the poison more, and the Singe can maneuver the poison a little bit better. But I don't see Singe seeing much more play off of this. This is maybe at the very least a minor buff, if not even a nerf. And so I don't think Singe is very good right now, and I don't expect to see too much of him in the future. Although if it does make Deathfire and Leandries do more damage, that is kind of a buff to the champion, and it's nice, but again, doesn't make him strong enough to see more play. Soraka, W cooldown, holy sh! They increased her cooldown by 4 seconds at level 1? Oh my god. Okay, so I was gonna default Soraka. I thought Soraka was the one of the lowest skill floor champions to play, with like a mid ceiling, which means that if you every single game on Soraka, if you play and you're just like not into it, you're not paying attention, you're on the phone at the same time, so your Soraka level of gameplay, you're still going to be outputting like 60-70% of a Soraka that's playing and focusing on the game. And I thought that that's kind of annoying to play against, because it feels like to some extent that the Soraka player gets carried, even if the Soraka player is playing well. Now, though, you can really abuse Soraka. Doubling her Astral Infusion at level 1 is insane. And I think that that's a huge nerf, almost pushing her straight out of play to some extent. I think that it definitely means that you can't scrap as hard with Soraka anymore with the QW level 1 and 2, and it means that you need to be very, very, very careful playing with Soraka, because when I was the AD for Soraka, I would just auto-walk in the other team, because whatever happened in the trade, I would win, unless they killed me. But they couldn't, and if they tried to kill me with Ignite, I just started moving backwards. And so now you have to actually use your brain when you're playing as the AD, because she just cannot heal you as much as she could before. I think this is gonna make Soraka players play a lot less. Like, this is a really, really big nerf, especially to her laning phase, which is her the only part of her that could be abused quite hard. Twitch, Q attack speed decreased. I think with the current armor pen build and how Hurricane interacts with long range, Twitch has indeed gotten better from his old iterations. I think that Twitch's 1 and 2 item power spike specifically is very, very strong, and so I can understand them nerfing him a little bit. These seem like they're probably still okay. I don't think Twitch is gonna win less because of these. These were unexpected nerfs though, but I think they're okay. I do understand what they mean when they said that the environment for Twitch has become more favorable over time. Udyr, this champion is not played right now, almost at all. And I think it's because there's an AP build with Runic Echoes that I really hated, because it made Udyr the best jungler in the game, or one of the best junglers in the game, and they nerfed everything about it. And now maybe they're trying to rectify their mistake for making Udyr just so bad. So, what does it do? Wow, they increased the proc damage that's a lot. They increased the proc damage at 15 at 1, up to 35 at max level. It just does the damage faster, but that's still pretty good, because it means if the Udyr can stick on you, then they're rewarded for being able to do that. No, I think that's a nice buff. It certainly doesn't make Udyr too strong, I think, but it just helps Udyr, because this champion is not in a great spot right now, and I could see where he could use a little bit of buffs. Overall, the patch nerfs, we're really surprised by the Soraka nerf. I like it because I hate playing against Soraka, but I do think that is a really big nerf, and quite frankly, like, crazy, to be honest. I expected maybe a nerf from like 4 to 6 at level 1, but 4 to 8 doubling the cooldown almost puts her laning phase, like, it makes her so much weaker in lane. Additionally, I'm glad to see the Cassio nerfs, and I'm kind of surprised to see the Sol and Anivia nerfs, and glad to see the Corki buffs. The patch overall, it's okay. I like it, but it doesn't wow me like some of the earlier patches. Like, I thought they did balance really, really well before Worlds. I thought the before Worlds patch was great. Like, really excellent, some of the patches before Worlds. This one, I'm just like, it's okay. But it's still positive, but not as much as it could have, not as much as it was before. Oh, now you can't flash first 15 seconds in chat. That's actually pretty smart of them, so that you don't just randomly waste it. Uh, un- a bunch of UI improvements. Pinging an item in the shop generates a chat message. Oh my god! Thank you. Okay, no, this is everything else. Just ignore it. This is the most important thing about this patch. When you sometimes you wait in chat and you're wondering if the guy is AFK. You want to know how pinging an item in shop allows you to tell them how much gold you need for an item. This is great. Thank God. I've been wanting to see this. I think the pings for cooldowns and pings for this are so beneficial because it allows me to communicate with my teammates without actually talking to them. And so it's the next best thing for voice chat that's available to us. I like it. It's excellent. Really good. Passes with cooldowns, bunch of current gold. Yeah, this is already added in the current game. You can do all of these things, so these aren't very new to me. Okay, I think that's the overall patch. I'm not saying these. I exaggerated when I said these are the best changes, but in terms of overall, these will probably influence me the most, or help me the most game by game. Because this is so big for me. Because if you're the support and you don't know you get a kill, but you want to know, oh, he needs dirt gold, but you don't know how much gold he has. You can look at his CS. You can be like, he has like around 900 to 1200 gold. This really helps out. And now I'm gonna go to the new champion, which I don't know where this champion actually is. Here we go. Wait. Okay. Well, here we go. Ivern Bramblefoot was called Ivern the Cruel before he was tangled with a god willow. Centuries since has roamed the forest of Runeterra, cultivating life wherever he goes. He brings all the secrets of the forest along with him. Okay, cool. So he is a nature-oriented champion. I should expect to see a lot of stuff that has to do with trees or with green stuff. Cool. Okay. So his passive loves jungle monsters and would never harm them. Instead, he sets them free. Clicking on a jungle camp creates a grove using some of the grove matures over time. When it's fully grown, you can click on it to free the camp. What? At level 5, the green father creates copies of the red and blue sentinels when he frees the lead behind, which can be picked up. What? Wait, how does he get the blue buff? So he gets the blue buff off his passive, and then the blue buff drops or gets smited by the Lux. So you can actually, there's not a choice anymore. You don't have to pass the blue buff to your mid laner. It's you also get the blue buff with the mid laner. That's perfect. That's great. I like it. This is such a unique mechanic. I don't know how they evaluate it, but the first thing I originally think of when I think of this mechanic, imagine you're invading, and so you grove their red buff. It says when you smite it, you instantly get the buff and the XP. Essentially, what happens when it pops. So you put the grove. It takes 8 seconds to put it on. So you put the grove on this red buff, and then you smite it when you're invading, and you instantly get it. You run out. It's not a smite contest. It's not a war. You win the war by existing and clicking it. It doesn't look like they can cancel the growth. So as long as you can activate it and smite it, it's yours. That's really interesting. Oh, it only works after level 5. Okay. But that's to be expected. I'm talking about when you invade around like the second blue buff timer, which I think is around level 6. You're 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that's the first thing I think of is it could be very interesting for invades. All right, let's talk a little bit less about this. It's interesting, very new mechanic. I like new mechanics for the most part. Shoots a ropey root that deals magic damage as you expect. Roots the target. First enemy hits. Okay, not champion specific. Doesn't pass through units. Oh my god! Wait. So, if it's a melee champion who attacks him, they instantly dash within auto range. That's crazy, but it's a skill shot. So it's an insane like utility move, but it requires you to hit the utility, and it seems kind of slow. Like look at first of all, look at the range. The range is like what 600, 700. Okay, and then it's a pretty slow projectile, flashable. Okay, I think that's reasonable. Not a big deal. Notice I don't know numbers yet. I'm not gonna go look for them. I'm just gonna evaluate the kit as it is. Yeah, your allies can jump to it as well. No, I understand. It's great utility, but with hiding in the bush, basic auto attacks have increased magic damage and range. Oh, that's so weird. So this is a ranged jungler. Okay, temporarily reveals the area around it. He creates brush. It can be used by. That's actually. I like it. I think that's super cool. It works for either the enemy team or your team. You have a buff when you're in it, and you can. Like, they have to ward inside it, but you're sieging. Let's imagine you're sieging. It's a neutral position. You're sieging into the tower, brushes right in front, and you just walk in. What is their reaction? If you're the initiator, they can't walk into place of war because they will die, especially if it's a support walking up, or if the tank has to walk up, but it's still really scary. Opens up really interesting interactions on the map. Interesting. I like it. It's really cool. So far, innovative stuff, really nice stuff, but doesn't seem super OP. Remember, both the enemy and the ally can use it. Places a protective seal on an ally, granting them a shield. After a short delay, it explodes, damaging and slowing all nearby enemies. All I want to know is if he can use it on himself. I imagine that he can. Okay, that's great. That's cool. So he has this champion so far has a lot of utility, in a lot of weird ways. Like the Q, which essentially allows you to jump to them. The W, which sets up a bush, and the E, which AOE slows. I like it. It does remind me a little bit of like Karma E, for instance, Lulu E, but it just AoE slows around it. It's cool. Looks like a support though. What is this? Someone's Daisy, a Norma Sentinel who loves hugs. Daisy scampers around joyfully, knocking up her targets after a few hits. Can recast his ability to direct his boisterous friend toward new targets. Oh, thank God there's actually UI targeting. Why can't this be on Yorick's ulti? She'll hang around after hankering for hugs has been satisfied or until her health bar is depleted. Wait, she has a 3-hit passive and it's an AoE knockup. Okay, what an interesting kid, man. Every one of the abilities, including the passive, is unique. Never done before in the game. But none of it seems like super crazy OP. Like, I have to see the numbers, but it's cool. Honestly, the champion's really cool. I think his kit fits his theme fairly well, and he has a lot of unique, interesting interactions that will take a while to get used to. I always love new champions. I love new kits. I think it's great. What's he kind of looking? He just gets a knock. I don't even. Is this a support player? I guess this is like a support slash jungler, or just like a jungler. I think this is cool. Oh. Makes his shit rage too. That's cool. Oh, right. You can give Rengar bushes in the middle of nowhere. Oh, that's sick. I forgot about Antimo bush interaction. Okay. No, I like the new hero a lot. Like, a lot. And so I'm really interested to play him and feed when he comes out.